Chosen one, pause for a moment. Not the kind of pause where your eyes keep scanning and your mind keeps racing, but a real pause. Take a breath. Let the noise settle. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't meant to be consumed casually. This is not background audio. This is not something you half hear while doing something else. This message is meant to meet you fully present, because something already shifted in your life recently, and whether you noticed it or not, it marked the end of a long, hidden season. 3 days ago, something subtle but decisive unfolded. It didn't look dramatic. There were no flashing signs, no obvious breakthrough, no moment where you thought, this is it. In fact, it probably felt like just another exhausting day layered on top of many exhausting days. You were tired in a way sleep doesn't fix, emotionally worn down, mentally stretched thin. You may have even felt disconnected from yourself, like you were running on fumes, just doing what you had to do to get through the hours. And that's exactly why you didn't recognize what it truly was. That moment wasn't random fatigue. It was an evaluation. Not the kind of test where you prepare answers or study material. This wasn't about performance. It wasn't about proving anything outwardly. It was a test that only activates when you no longer have the energy to impress, to explain, to defend, or to manage appearances. It was designed to see what remains when everything superficial falls away, when there's no strength left to hold masks in place, when all that's left is instinct, reflex, and core character. And in that moment you were watched. Not in a threatening way, but in a precise one. Because spiritual readiness is never determined by what you do when you're strong. It's revealed by what you default to when you're depleted. Anyone can be kind when they feel good. Anyone can choose patience when they're well rested and supported. But who are you when you're misunderstood, drained, and alone? Who are you when reacting poorly would be justified? Who are you when no one would blame you for choosing self-interest? That window of time. A few hours where something pushed you past what you thought you could handle was the final checkpoint. Maybe it came through a conversation that hit a nerve you didn't know was still exposed. Maybe it came through a disappointment that reopened an old wound. Maybe it was a sense of isolation so deep it left you numb instead of emotional. Or maybe it was temptation, subtle and quiet, offering you an easy out that no one would ever know about. Whatever form it took, it stripped you down to your essence. And here's what matters when the moment came. You didn't become someone you didn't recognize. You didn't betray yourself. You didn't abandon your values. You didn't cross a line you promised yourself you wouldn't cross again. You may not have handled it perfectly, but you handled it honestly. Your response came from alignment, not impulse. From maturity, not ego. From growth, not old survival patterns. That's what passed the test. Not because you were flawless, but because your default has changed. Integrity is no longer something you consciously summon when you remember to be good. It's something embedded into you now. It shows up even when you're tired, even when you're triggered, even when no one is watching. And that shift doesn't happen by accident. It only happens after years of internal work, failure, reflection, loss, and rebuilding. This is the part few people understand. Growth doesn't announce itself. Transformation doesn't always feel empowering while it's happening. Often it feels like loss. Like outgrowing things without knowing what's replacing them yet. Like standing between versions of yourself, no longer who you were, not fully who you're becoming. That liminal space is uncomfortable, lonely, and disorienting. And many people mistake it for regression. They think they're breaking down when in reality, they're being refined. What you went through wasn't punishment. It wasn't abandonment. It wasn't delay. It was confirmation. Because the deeper levels of influence, wisdom, and authority aren't given based on desire. They're granted based on demonstrated capacity. And capacity isn't proven through knowledge. It's proven through restraint, through humility, through choosing what's right when it costs you something, through holding power without needing to use it. That's why so many people remain stuck at the same level for years. Not because they aren't gifted, not because they aren't spiritual, but because they haven't yet become safe carriers of greater responsibility. Power amplifies what's already there. If someone still operates from ego, insecurity, or unresolved resentment, more influence would only magnify the damage. So life waits, not to punish, but to protect. 3 days ago, life didn't need to wait on you anymore. And tonight, while your conscious mind rests, something subtle but significant completes its cycle. Not in a way you'll see with your eyes, but in a way you'll feel in your inner world. A sense of readiness, a quiet confidence, a clarity that doesn't need validation. It won't feel like excitement. It will feel like grounding. Don't misunderstand this. What's opening to you now isn't an escape from challenge. It's an invitation into deeper responsibility. Into a life where your presence carries weight. Where your words matter. Where your choices ripple further than before. This isn't about being elevated above others. It's about being trusted with more. And trust is only given where character has been tested thoroughly. Think about how different you are now compared to a few years ago. Not in visible achievements, but in internal responses. Things that once sent you spiraling no longer have the same grip. Situations that would have provoked reaction now meet discernment. You pause more. You observe more. You choose more intentionally. That didn't come from theory. It came from lived experience. From lessons you didn't ask for but survived anyway. You've learned when to speak and when silence carries more power. You've learned that not every truth needs to be announced. That boundaries don't require explanation. That walking away can be an act of strength, not weakness. You've learned that peace is more valuable than being right. That alignment matters more than approval. These lessons weren't random. They were cumulative, each one building toward this moment. And now, the way forward changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you engage it differently. You're no longer driven by the same urgency to prove yourself. You're less reactive to chaos, less tempted by shortcuts, less interested in validation that costs your authenticity. You're becoming selective, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. You know what drains you. You know what aligns you, and you're learning to choose accordingly. This is what readiness looks like. Quiet, stable, grounded. In the coming days, you may notice subtle shifts. Your mind may feel clearer, less cluttered by overthinking. Decisions that once felt heavy may start feeling straightforward. Not because every option is perfect, but because you can sense what's aligned and what isn't. You may feel less pulled into drama, less compelled to explain yourself, less affected by opinions that once mattered too much. You may also notice people responding to you differently. Some will feel drawn to your presence, even if they can't articulate why. Others may distance themselves, sensing a change they don't understand. Let both happen. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next season, and that's not a judgment. It's alignment. What matters most right now is how you carry this shift. Quietly, humbly, with awareness. This isn't a finish line. It's a threshold. And thresholds require reverence, not celebration. Integration, not announcement. The strength you've earned doesn't need to be displayed. It needs to be lived. You didn't pass this test because you tried harder. You passed because you became someone different. Someone reliable. Someone whose values remain intact even under pressure. Someone who doesn't need perfect conditions to choose integrity. And that's why the season ahead will ask more of you. But it will also support you in new ways. You'll find that when you need insight, it arrives. When you need steadiness, it's there. When you need timing, things align with less force. Not because life bends to your will, but because you've learned to move with wisdom instead of resistance. Something else is happening beneath the surface now, and it's important you understand it clearly, because this phase can be confusing if you don't recognize what it actually is. After a major internal test is passed, there is often a quiet recalibration period. It doesn't feel dramatic. In fact, it can feel strangely empty at first, like the intensity you were carrying suddenly drops, leaving behind a stillness that feels unfamiliar. Many people misinterpret this stillness as loss of motivation or spiritual dryness. It's not. It's integration. Your system is adjusting to a new baseline. For a long time, your nervous system lived in survival mode. Even during calm seasons, there was a subtle tension underneath, a readiness to defend, explain, or brace for impact. You learned to stay alert because life taught you that peace was temporary. Something always followed it. So even when things were good, part of you stayed guarded. That state became normal without you realizing it. But now, something fundamental has shifted. The need to constantly anticipate threat is loosening. And when that happens, the mind doesn't immediately know what to do with the extra space. Silence can feel uncomfortable when you're used to noise. Calm can feel suspicious when you're used to chaos. So if you've felt slightly disoriented, less driven by urgency, or unsure what to do with yourself lately, that's not regression. That's your system relearning safety. This stage requires patience, because forcing clarity right now would actually delay it. You're not meant to rush into answers or decisions. You're meant to let the dust settle. Think of it like stirring up sediment in water. When movement stops, clarity comes on its own. Trying to see clearly while everything is still in motion only creates distortion. What's being rewired right now is your relationship with power. Before, power felt like something you had to protect, defend, or assert. You may have equated strength with intensity, resilience with endurance, leadership with self-sacrifice. And while those qualities served you in earlier seasons, they are not sustainable at higher levels. True authority doesn't require constant effort. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't prove. It simply is. You're beginning to experience that difference internally. You may notice that situations which once triggered an immediate emotional reaction now register differently. There's a pause where there didn't used to be one. A space between stimulus and response. That space is not weakness. It's mastery. It's the place where choice lives. And choice is the foundation of real power. This is also where discernment sharpens. Discernment isn't about judging others or seeing yourself as above them. It's about accurately reading energy, intention, and alignment without needing evidence or explanation. It's knowing when something isn't for you, even if it looks good on the surface. It's sensing when a door is open versus when it's merely unlocked. It's understanding that not every opportunity is an assignment. In the past, you may have felt compelled to say yes out of fear that opportunities wouldn't come again. Or you may have stayed in situations longer than you should have because leaving felt like failure. But now, your internal compass is recalibrated. You're less afraid of missing out because you trust timing more. You're less afraid of endings because you've seen what misalignment costs. This trust didn't come from optimism. It came from experience. You've seen what happens when you force things prematurely. You've felt the exhaustion of trying to make something work that wasn't meant to last. You've lived the consequences of ignoring intuition for the sake of comfort or familiarity. And instead of hardening you, those lessons refined you. They taught you how to listen. Listening is becoming a central theme in this season. Not just listening to others, but listening inwardly. To the subtle signals your body gives you. To the quiet nudges that don't come with urgency or fear. To the sense of ease or resistance that arises before logic kicks in. This kind of listening requires slowing down, which is why life may be gently reducing distractions right now. You may find yourself less interested in constant stimulation, less drawn to noise, drama, or superficial conversation. This isn't isolation for the sake of withdrawal. It's selective engagement. Your energy is becoming more intentional, and intentional energy doesn't scatter itself everywhere. At the same time, this phase can bring a strange mix of confidence and vulnerability. You know who you are more clearly, yet you're also aware of how much responsibility that clarity carries. When identity stabilizes, excuses fall away. You can no longer blame circumstances or other people for choices that are now clearly yours to make. That realization can feel heavy. But it's also freeing, because responsibility isn't a burden when it's paired with agency. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding, and response implies authorship. You're stepping into a position where you shape outcomes through presence, not force. This is where many people subconsciously try to retreat. Growth often triggers a desire to go back to simpler versions of ourselves, not because they were better, but because they were less demanding. Lower levels of awareness come with fewer consequences. But once you've seen clearly, you can't unsee. And trying to pretend otherwise only creates internal conflict. So if you've felt moments of nostalgia for who you used to be, understand this: you're not meant to abandon the past. You're meant to integrate it. The earlier versions of you weren't wrong. They were necessary. They carried you as far as they could. But they are not equipped for where you're going. This is also why certain relationships may feel strained right now. Not because anyone did something wrong, but because alignment has shifted. When you grow internally, the dynamics around you adjust whether you intend them to or not. Some people will adapt with you. Others will unconsciously resist the change because it disrupts familiar patterns. Neither response is something you need to manage. Let people respond as they will. Your role is not to convince. It's to remain congruent. Congruence is the alignment between who you are internally and how you move externally. When that alignment strengthens, life becomes simpler, even if it becomes more demanding. You waste less energy pretending. You explain less. You tolerate less. And in exchange, you gain clarity, respect, and peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from avoiding difficulty, but the kind that comes from knowing you can meet difficulty without losing yourself. This phase is also about recalibrating desire. What you want now may not look like what you wanted before. Goals that once motivated you may feel hollow. Not because ambition is wrong, but because ambition without alignment is empty. You're beginning to desire things that are harder to quantify: stability, integrity, depth, contribution, resonance. These desires don't shout. They whisper, and they require patience. You may notice that you're less impressed by surface success and more attentive to substance, less drawn to people who perform confidence and more drawn to those who embody it quietly. Less interested in being seen and more interested in being effective. This is maturation, and maturity is often misunderstood because it doesn't seek attention. The coming period isn't about making dramatic moves. It's about making precise ones. Small intentional shifts that compound over time, adjusting habits, refining boundaries, clarifying priorities. These changes may not be visible to others immediately, but they will shape your trajectory profoundly. You're learning how to carry yourself differently. Not with rigidity, but with groundedness. Not with detachment, but with discernment. Not with hardness, but with steadiness. And steadiness is what allows others to trust you, even when they don't consciously know why. People sense when someone is internally anchored. They feel safe around it. They listen more closely. They respond differently. This isn't charisma, it's coherence. As this integration continues, resist the urge to label it prematurely. You don't need to name this phase or define it fully yet. Let it unfold. Let understanding arrive naturally. For now, your only real task is to stay present, honest, and receptive. Notice what drains you. Notice what nourishes you. Notice what feels aligned and what feels forced. These observations are not trivial. They are guidance. And above all, trust what has already been proven. You didn't imagine your growth. You didn't stumble into this readiness by accident. It was earned through choices made in private moments, when no one was watching. Through restraint that went unnoticed. Through integrity that didn't receive applause. That foundation is solid. And because it is, what's being built next won't collapse under its own weight. This season isn't loud, but it's powerful. It's not flashy, but it's formative. It's shaping how you will move, lead, create, and contribute from here forward. Let it do its work. You don't need to rush the becoming. As this internal stabilization continues, another layer begins to surface, one that's quieter, but far more consequential. It's the moment when awareness shifts from self-protection to self-expression. For a long time, your energy was spent guarding what you carried. You learned how to hold back, how to observe, how to measure rooms before revealing anything real. That wasn't deception. That was wisdom born from experience. You understood early that not everyone knows how to handle depth. and not every environment is safe for truth. But now the posture is changing. You're no longer being asked to hide what you are. You're being asked to inhabit it. This doesn't mean suddenly becoming loud or visible in ways that feel unnatural. It means allowing yourself to take up the space that's already yours without apology. It means releasing the subtle habit of shrinking, lowering your voice, softening your conviction, delaying your truth, to keep others comfortable. That habit served you once. It protected you while you were still forming, but it will suffocate you if you keep it now. You may feel moments where you catch yourself about to retreat, and something inside gently but firmly says, "No, stay. Speak. Hold eye contact. Finish the thought. Don't dilute it." Those moments are important. They're not about dominance or ego. They're about integrity. Integrity is alignment between what you know and how you live. The more you honor that alignment, the less fragmented you feel internally. Confusion fades when you stop betraying yourself in small ways. Exhaustion lifts when you no longer carry the burden of self-suppression. And interestingly, resistance from others often decreases too, not because everyone agrees with you, but because clarity commands a certain respect. This phase often brings a recalibration of voice. Not just literal voice, but expression in all its forms. The way you communicate, the way you choose words, the way you set boundaries, the way you say yes, and just as importantly, the way you say no. There's a growing precision in you now. You're less interested in explaining everything and more interested in being understood by those who are actually listening. That discernment saves enormous energy. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to convince people of your intentions. If something is misinterpreted, you're less compelled to correct it immediately. Not because you don't care, but because you trust truth to reveal itself over time. This is a significant shift. It means your sense of self is no longer dependent on external validation. Validation used to feel necessary because it provided stability. Now, stability comes from within. This internal anchoring changes how you experience challenge. Problems still arise, but they don't destabilize you the way they once did. You meet difficulty with curiosity instead of panic. You ask, "What is this showing me?" rather than "Why is this happening to me?" That single shift turns obstacles into information. And information is power when you know how to use it. You're beginning to see patterns more clearly, not just in your own life, but in systems, behaviors, and dynamics around you. You notice how people repeat cycles without realizing it. You see how fear disguises itself as logic. You recognize when urgency is manufactured rather than real. This isn't cynicism. It's clarity. With that clarity comes responsibility. Not the responsibility to fix everyone or correct everything, but the responsibility to choose where you place your attention and energy. Attention is one of the most valuable currencies you have, and you're becoming more selective with it. You no longer invest deeply in situations that drain you or conversations that go nowhere. You're learning that saying no isn't rejection, it's direction. This discernment also applies inwardly. You're becoming more aware of your own impulses, habits, and patterns. You notice when fear tries to rush you. You recognize when comfort tries to keep you small. And instead of judging yourself for these tendencies, you observe them. Observation without condemnation is a powerful form of mastery. There's a growing sense of internal leadership forming. Leadership here doesn't mean managing others. It means governing yourself, setting the tone internally, choosing responses consciously, maintaining coherence even when emotions fluctuate. This kind of leadership creates consistency, and consistency builds trust, both in yourself and from others. People may begin to come to you differently now, not necessarily for advice, but for presence. They may feel calmer around you, more grounded, more clear after conversations with you, even if you didn't say much. This isn't accidental. When someone is internally aligned, their nervous system regulates the space around them. Others feel it instinctively. This is why you're being called to embodiment, not performance. Embodiment means you live what you know. You don't just believe truth, you carry it in how you move, speak, decide, and rest. There's nothing to prove. The evidence is in the consistency of your being. You may notice that your tolerance for incongruence is decreasing. Situations where words and actions don't match may bother you more than before. This isn't judgment. It's sensitivity to truth. Once your internal alignment strengthens, misalignment becomes harder to ignore. This can feel isolating at times, not because you're alone, but because you're no longer willing to engage in what feels false. Small talk may feel heavier. Performative interactions may feel draining. You're not withdrawing, you're refining. And refinement always precedes resonance. Resonance is when you encounter people, opportunities, and environments that match your frequency without effort. These connections often arrive quietly. There's no chase, no convincing, no drama. Just recognition. A sense of ease, a feeling of this fits. You're learning to trust that feeling, even when it doesn't come with immediate logic or reassurance. Trust is deepening now. Not blind trust, but grounded trust. Trust built on evidence, on survival, on lessons learned, on discernment earned through experience. This trust allows you to move forward without needing guarantees. You don't require certainty to act. You require alignment. That distinction changes everything. As you embody this authority more fully, fear loses its grip. Not because fear disappears, but because it no longer dictates your choices. Fear becomes information, not instruction. You listen to it without obeying it. This is what maturity looks like internally. You may also feel a subtle but persistent pull toward contribution. Not in a grandiose sense, but in a grounded one. A desire to be useful, to build something meaningful, to offer what you carry in a way that serves beyond yourself. This isn't about legacy yet. It's about expression. Expression is the natural overflow of embodiment. When you are fully yourself, what you carry seeks form. It wants to move, create, connect. Suppressing that impulse creates stagnation. Honoring it brings vitality. This doesn't mean you need to rush into action. It means you need to listen to what wants to emerge. Sometimes expression looks like speaking. Sometimes it looks like building. Sometimes it looks like mentoring, creating, designing, organizing, or simply holding space. There is no single correct form. The form will reveal itself as you stay aligned. What matters most right now is that you stop doubting the legitimacy of your inner knowing. You've earned this clarity. You didn't wake up one day and imagine it. It was forged through pressure, discernment, and choice. You are not ahead of others. You are not behind. You are exactly where your path has led you. This phase isn't about becoming extraordinary. It's about becoming authentic without compromise. And authenticity, when fully embodied, is more powerful than any performance. Let yourself settle into this authority gently. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to defend it. You don't need permission to be who you are. Just be consistent. Just be honest. Just be present. The rest will follow naturally. You're not stepping into power. As this embodiment deepens, you begin to notice something subtle but unmistakable. Life starts responding to you differently. Not dramatically at first, not with fireworks or announcements, but with a quiet recalibration. Situations that once felt heavy start resolving faster. Conversations that used to spiral now land cleanly. Decisions that once took endless back and forth suddenly feel obvious. This isn't because life became simpler. It's because you became clearer. Clarity changes the way reality organizes itself around you. When your inner world stabilizes, your outer world follows. You stop sending mixed signals to people, to opportunities, to life itself. And when the signal becomes clean, responses become clean too. This is where authority truly activates, not as control, but as coherence. Authority at this level doesn't shout. It doesn't posture. You're not trying to influence anything, yet influence happens. You're not trying to lead, yet direction forms. This is because true authority isn't something you take. It's something that emerges when your inner and outer life finally agree. There's a reason this couldn't happen earlier. Before now, parts of you were still negotiating with fear, still adjusting to approval, still holding on to old survival strategies that were necessary once but limiting now. Authority cannot coexist with internal contradiction. Power leaks where self-doubt lives. So life waited. It tested. It stripped. It pressed you until what remained was solid. And now what remains is stable. This stability doesn't mean you never feel shaken. It means you recover faster. You don't spiral the way you used to. You don't abandon yourself under pressure. When tension arises, you stay present instead of escaping mentally or emotionally. That alone is a form of mastery most people never develop. You're also beginning to notice how quickly you recognize misalignment. Not just in others, but in yourself. When you agree to something that doesn't sit right, your body tells you immediately. When you overextend, you feel it faster. When you compromise your truth, even subtly, there's an internal signal that says this isn't it. This sensitivity isn't weakness. It's precision. Precision protects authority. It keeps you from scattering your energy. It keeps you from entangling yourself in dynamics that drain you. It keeps you aligned with your deeper purpose, even when distractions are tempting. And distractions will come. They often arrive disguised as opportunities. Things that look good on the surface, but pull you away from what actually matters. Offers that appeal to ego instead of essence. Paths that promise recognition but cost integrity. Earlier in your life, you might have taken those. Not because you were flawed, but because you were still learning. Now, the cost is immediately visible. You can sense when something will dilute you instead of expand you. And more importantly, you're willing to walk away, even if it means short-term discomfort. That willingness is a sign that your identity has stabilized. You no longer need every opportunity to validate you. This stabilization also changes how you relate to effort. You're no longer forcing outcomes the way you once did. There's less pushing, less chasing. Things move quickly. Doors open. Conversations align. Support appears. Not because you're lucky, but because your actions are timed correctly. Timing improves when you're not acting from fear. You stop rushing what isn't ready. You stop delaying what is. This creates momentum that feels almost effortless. But don't confuse effortlessness with ease. Growth still requires courage. Expansion still requires risk. The difference is that the resistance no longer comes from within. You're not fighting yourself anymore. And that frees an enormous amount of energy. Another noticeable shift is how you experience responsibility. Responsibility no longer feels like a burden. It feels like stewardship. You understand that what you carry, your insight, your presence, your steadiness, isn't just for you. Not in a self-sacrificing way, but in a meaningful one. You're aware that how you show up affects others, and instead of feeling pressured by that, you feel grounded by it. This is where purpose begins to activate more clearly, not as a single job or role, but as a way of being. You realize that your value isn't tied to constant output. Sometimes your purpose is simply to be the calmest person in the room. Sometimes it's to speak truth when others hesitate. Sometimes it's to listen deeply when someone feels unseen. These moments may seem small, but they're not. Impact doesn't always announce itself. Often, it unfolds quietly, over time, through consistency. You may never fully know how your steadiness changes the trajectory of someone else's life. And that's okay. Authority isn't about recognition. It's about reliability. As this reliability becomes embodied, your sense of identity continues to refine. You're less attached to old labels, less defined by past roles, less interested in who you used to be. You honor that version of yourself without living there. There's a growing sense of now, of presence, of inhabiting your current capacity without nostalgia or regret. This allows grief to move through you cleanly. Grief for old dreams that no longer fit. Grief for relationships that couldn't come with you. Grief for versions of yourself that did their best, but couldn't survive where you're going. You don't rush this grief or dramatize it. You let it pass through with respect. Letting go with respect preserves dignity. And dignity is another hallmark of authority. You don't need to demonize the past to move forward. You don't need to justify every decision. You trust your growth enough to let history rest. As identity stabilizes, your nervous system stabilizes too. You're less reactive, less triggered by unpredictability, less shaken by uncertainty. You don't need everything to be clear to feel safe. Safety now comes from your ability to respond, not from controlling outcomes. This creates a deep internal freedom. Freedom from compulsive people-pleasing. Freedom from constant self-doubt. Freedom from the need to prove your worth. And in that freedom, joy begins to surface again. Not the high-energy excitement of achievement, but the quiet satisfaction of alignment. Moments feel fuller. Rest feels deeper. Laughter feels more genuine. You're not chasing happiness, you're allowing it. This is what full embodiment looks like in practice. Not perfection, Not dominance, not superiority, but grounded authority, stable identity, purposeful presence. You don't need to announce this phase. You don't need to explain it. Those who are meant to recognize it will. Those who aren't don't need to. Your work now is simple, but not easy. Stay aligned, stay honest, stay humble. Let your actions reflect your clarity. Let your boundaries protect your peace. Let your presence do the work words can't. You've moved beyond becoming. Now you're learning how to remain. And that, in many ways, as this chapter comes to a close, what matters most is not what you felt while listening, but what you will carry forward once the sound fades and the screen goes dark. Because real transformation is never proven in moments of inspiration. It is revealed in how you live when no one is reminding you who you are. What you are stepping into now is not a peak moment. It is a long season. A season of consistency. A season of quiet impact. A season where your growth is measured not by dramatic breakthroughs, but by how steadily you walk in what you already know. Legacy does not begin at the end of life. Legacy begins the moment you stop living only for yourself. And something in you has already crossed that threshold. You are starting to realize that your presence carries consequences. That how you respond matters. That how you listen matters. That how you hold space for others matters. Not because you are responsible for saving anyone, but because you are someone others unconsciously calibrate themselves against. People may never say it out loud, but they watch how you move through difficulty. They notice how you handle disappointment. They observe whether your values collapse under pressure or stay intact. And what they see gives them permission, either to rise or to remain small. That is influence. Not platform, not visibility, not authority titles. Influence is who you are when life tests you in ordinary moments. This is why your impact will not always look impressive from the outside. You will not always see immediate results. Some of the seeds you plant will grow in places you never revisit. Some of the people you help will never thank you. Some of the moments where you choose patience over reaction will quietly alter timelines you'll never know existed. And that's okay. You are not here to collect evidence of your impact. You are here to be the impact. As you continue forward, you may notice an increasing desire for simplicity. Less noise, fewer distractions, cleaner commitments. This isn't withdrawal from life, it's refinement. When purpose matures, it sheds excess. You begin to value depth over volume, truth over appearance, substance over speed. You may also feel a pull toward creating something that outlives you. Not necessarily something public or grand, but something enduring. A way of thinking you pass on, a standard you model, a sense of safety you give others permission to feel. Legacy often looks like emotional inheritance more than material inheritance. What people learn from you about how to treat themselves, what they learn about what is possible after suffering, what they learn about staying whole in a fractured world. That is legacy, and it is built one ordinary day at a time. You will still face challenges. Some days will feel heavy again. Some moments will shake your confidence. That doesn't mean you've regressed. Growth is not a straight line, it's a widening capacity. What once overwhelmed you may still appear, but it no longer defines you. You are not fragile anymore. You bend, but you don't break. You feel, but you don't collapse. You care, but you don't abandon yourself. This resilience is not something you force. It's something you earned through experience. And that earned strength gives your life credibility. People trust those who have lived what they speak. So when you offer perspective, it lands. When you set boundaries, they hold. When you stay calm, it stabilizes others. Not because you are trying to lead, but because you are grounded. As time goes on, you may feel less need to explain yourself, less desire to convince, less interest in being understood by everyone. This is not indifference, it is discernment. You learn that clarity doesn't require consensus. You don't need permission to live in alignment. You don't need validation to stay true. You don't need applause to keep going. Your internal compass is active now, and that compass will guide you through choices others may not understand. Choices that prioritize integrity over approval, alignment over appearance, long-term peace over short-term comfort. Some people will grow with you. Some will grow away from you. Neither is a failure. Growth changes proximity. What matters is that you remain honest with yourself as these shifts happen. Grief may surface again, not because something is wrong, but because you are releasing attachments that no longer fit. Let that grief move through you without resistance. It is simply the nervous system updating to a new reality. You are not losing people. You are meeting yourself more fully. And the more fully you inhabit yourself, the more naturally the right connections will find you. Not rushed, not forced, but resonant. These connections will feel mutual, grounded, and spacious. There will be less intensity, less chaos, and more trust. Because trust grows where people don't have to perform. As your life stabilizes in this way, your sense of meaning will deepen. Meaning will stop being something you search for and start being something you recognize. In moments of service, in moments of presence, in moments of choosing what is right over what is easy, you will understand that your life doesn't need to be extraordinary to be significant. It needs to be true. True to your values, true to your capacity, true to your inner alignment. And when you live from that truth, your life becomes a quiet answer to questions others are afraid to ask. Is it possible to change? Is it possible to heal? Is it possible to stay kind without being weak? Is it possible to be strong without being hardened? Your life says yes. Not loudly, not perfectly, but consistently. As this message ends, nothing magical happens in the external world. The room you're in stays the same. The day continues. The responsibilities remain. But something subtle has already shifted, not because of what was said, but because of what you recognized in yourself. Recognition is powerful. When you recognize who you are becoming, you stop fighting your own growth. You stop resisting responsibility. You stop underestimating your impact. And from that point forward, life becomes less about proving and more about practicing. Practicing presence, practicing honesty, practicing grounded strength. This is how real change sustains itself. So take this forward quietly. Let it show up in how you speak, in how you listen, in how you choose, in how you rest. Let your life be the continuation of this message. And remember this as you move ahead, you do not need to rush into the future. You are already standing in the result of years of preparation. All that is required now is faithfulness to who you have become. Walk steadily, live truthfully. Carry your strength gently. And when doubt visits, as it sometimes will, Return to what you know through experience, not theory. You have survived what you once thought would break you, and you are still here with your integrity intact. That is not accidental, that is earned, that is real. This chapter closes not with an ending, but with a quiet continuation. And you